What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, and today I'm going to talk about love. Yeah, everybody's favorite subject, love. But actually, I'm going to talk about the band Arthur Lee, the 60s, coming out of the LA freak scene. Very much a psych folky band that was at times Birdsian, very Hendrixy at times, dipped into some funk during their later years, kind of some Mama and Papa, some Jefferson Airplane, some Who, some Kinks. Like, this band really wasn't trying to sound like other bands, but was living in this sort of musical culture in which they just absorbed everything that was happening and transformed it into some of the best, most underappreciated, most on the verge of being forgotten music ever, I would argue. I mean, just some absolutely fantastic stuff. Even their worst albums are I think, are pretty solid albums. I'm going to review 9 of them. I'm going to rank them from my least favorite to favorite. There are 10 that have been released. The last 2 were sort of, people found like recording session tapes and released albums that had not been released, but like this is what could have been released back in the early 70s. One of those, Black Beauty, I have. The other one, which I believe is called Lost Love, I don't have. I've not been able to find that album. I think I've seen it on Amazon a couple times, but I just never got around to buying it. And there is another compilation called Found Love, which has a lot of the tracks that are on Love Lost. It's called Love Lost. But I'm not going to talk about that one just because I haven't actually heard Love Lost itself. If you know anything about that album, love to hear it in the comments, whether it's worth actually seeking out and trying to purchase. Though all the songs that I know a lot of the songs were released on the later albums. A lot of them are on Found Love, or Love Found. So I probably don't need it. But anyways, that leaves me with 9, including Black Beauty, which was released about 10 years ago, which was also an album that was supposed to be released back in like 72 or 3. But I'm going to talk about that because that has an official, that is a more common, easy to find release. But yeah, Frank Zappa connection. Zappa was fully aware of Arthur Lee and Love. You can read interviews from that era where he comments on them and their involvement in the freak scene and how he's bringing some weird new form of psych music to LA. And yeah, Frank was very, very much aware of Arthur Lee. And I believe they even shared a stage together at one point. I don't think they were in the same band, but I think maybe opening acts or something like that at some point early in Frank's career, I believe. But yeah, there is a connection. They probably met and hung out at some point. But yeah, 9, I'm going to talk through them, put the list at the end, and yeah, and encourage you to check out this band because it's a really good band. But yeah, on to number 9. So number 9 is 5 String Serenade, a sort of comeback, revival, retro, folky, Hendrixian psych album that was released in early 2000s, I believe. Not officially a Love, but it's Arthur Lee and Love. But it sounds very much like Love, and it's actually a pretty good album. Inconsistent. I don't think it's as strong as the stuff before it, but it's got some pretty good, awesome standout tracks, and it's pretty like varied in what it's bringing and almost sounds like it could have come from the 70s. Opens up with this 5-string Serenade, which is a nice rain. I think you get rain ambient sounds, very gentle, kind of a acoustic-y vibe. It's a gentle 5-string Serenade. Somebody's Watching You might be one of the best songs on here. Breezy, upbeat, kind of a slight psych pop vibe, very tasty, loose, jammy thing. But then you get stuff like, you get some like frantic, like garage rock type stuff, and you're 20 on My Way, like frantic 60s psych pop. You're the Prettiest, has some delicate like little psych ballad. I Believe in You has this cheery noise that goes on the whole time, but it has a fun, almost like CCR, down on the corner type vibe, that kind of fun, just light acoustic-y type pop thing. 90 Miles Away, we get some nice casual, cool, psych, trippy pop, jazzy type hip stuff. We get the unfortunate 17. Like, I just don't need grown men, especially as they get older in age, singing about pre-legal girls and how sexy they are at 17. Just doesn't need to happen. There's just literally no reason for it. Love Saga, a really nice intro with some guitar licks, kind of slow, spacey, ambient, kind of jammy. Then we drop into a nice vibe, got some harmonica action in there. The Weather, we flirt with like techno stuff, and we got a drum machine that's kind of muted. It's an interesting experiment. I don't think it really pays off, but then it kind of does because it's so weird and it's still psyche and has a cool groove, but it's interesting. I don't think Albert Arthur Lee sings on this one. There's like a guest singer on this one. I think it's a weird track. And then it closes out with Passing By, which almost has a Voodoo Child, the long version vibe, just kind of a blues jammy thing. It's a fun album. It's got one really unfortunate song, but it's a good for, 20 or so, 30 years after their heyday or more. But yeah, that would be my number 9, 5-string Serenade. Number 8 is Black Beauty, which was released in 2012. So about 6 years after Arthur Lee passed away. That's when they started sort of going through the archives or whatever and trying to, capitalize on released new love material. And it was stuff that was recorded back in 73. And it's a pretty good album. Like it's got some great stuff. In fact, the opening track, I think it's the final couple tracks, are really strong. But then the middle just maybe treads water a little bit. But the opening track, Young and Able, parentheses, Good and Evil, almost really great funky rock, and it almost sounds like a young Pete Townsend in the vocals, which is pretty cool. Great opener, awesome song, incredible vocal performance. Just like starts the album off incredibly well. Midnight Sun, we get some screaming Hendrix guitar almost from the beginning. Has the melody of the lyrics kind of remind me of Bold as Love. We're dipping into the Hendrix energy. Hendrix would play on one of their albums that was recorded and released around this time. So there's definitely a lot of Hendrix influence in these songs. Can't Find It, nice slow intense guitar throughout it. Another just great performance, good Townsend vibe, a lot of Pete Townsend vocal vibes and just the sound of his voice in these. We get a nice walk right in, poppy jangly Psych. We get Skid, some mid-tempo rock, Beep Beep, no, this weird Caribbean vibe that just doesn't work. Stay Away, some really good groove rock. And then Lonely Pigs kind of flirts with a Big Star vibe at times a little bit, but just has this fantastic groove. And then See Myself in You is just awesome. 3 minutes of guitar rock Psych. And then Product of the Times is a really good Hendrix kind of deep groove rocker, which I believe appears on one of the officially released albums from this era, because I know that song, pretty sure, is going to pop up again. Unless I'm getting confused with something else, because I've been listening to a lot of Love recently after I did the Rush feedback, and they do 7 and 7 Is, which is why I was inspired now to do this. But anyways, maybe not. Maybe I'm confusing it with something else. But Product of the Times, good rocker to close out. Solid album, really enjoyable, great start, great finish. Kind of has one bad song, kind of gets a little average in the middle, but still a pretty good listen for an album that was never actually officially released when Arthur Lee was alive. Number 8, Black Beauty. Number 7 is their second album, Da Capo, which I recognize might be a controversial pick, dropping it as low as number 7. The first half of this album, Side A, is maybe perfect. It's just absolutely brilliant. 6 songs, opens up with Stephanie Knows Who, some really good kind of frantic Baroque poppy and type Psych. Orange Skies has this really gorgeous sort of intro, and then Lee's doing very much of a Mamas and Papas type love ballad. K Vita, really awesome pop, some really cleans, kind of whimsical Psych, MGMT and Foxygen, sort of like these 2010 era Psych bands. Like, this is the kind of song, K Vita, that it seems like they drew a lot of their inspiration from. The amazing 7 and 7 Is, which is the reason I'm doing this video, because Rush covered it and reminded me of the existence of Love, which sadly I had not listened to in far too long. Frantic Psych Rock Attack, just absolutely amazing. I think Peart wanted to perform this song because like the entire song is just like a drum roll the entire time, just like propelling the energy forward. You get the Castle, this nice sort of quiet, finger-picked, almost Paul Simon-ish type ballady thing into this weird Baroque poppy in middle section. And then you get She Comes in Colors, which is as Psych wonderful, MGMT flavored as the title She Comes in Colors suggests. So then you get side 2, which is one song, Revelation, a 19-minute jam for the most part. And I just don't think it works. Arthur Lee once said that this was by far, I don't think he said by far, but this was the worst song he had ever written. I think he said it in or ever released in unequivocal terms. The worst song he'd ever released. I don't think it's that bad. 17 and that Caribbean song from the last album, those are worse. But other than this fantastic saxophone solo that walks in about 2/3 of the way through, that drops in, that's just fantastic. About 3 minutes long solo, could have been 18 minutes and would have been great. The solos don't really do any for me. There's like this rhythm guitar solo. I think there's a bass, there's a bass, no, it's not a bass solo, but there's all these different solos. You get a harmonica solo. You get a pretty decent guitar solo. Kind of feels like a Pigpen song. You get some jammy stuff, some vocals, some jammy stuff, some vocals, some longer jammy stuff. But what they're doing with the jammy stuff just can't compare to what a lot of the other bands were doing at this time. And this isn't their wheelhouse. And usually I'm someone who's like, yeah, 19-minute single track, this is fantastic. But the first half of this album, his pop Psych songwriting chops are so honed in and so perfect and so perfectly encapsulate late 60s era, this kind of pop Psych Baroque music. It's just like, just give me 6 more of those type of songs. And like the actual song itself, the vocal part isn't that engaging, isn't that interesting. So I'm trying to make 2 statements. One, I really don't like half this album, and I wish it was more like the first half. And 2, the first side is really strong, but I think their catalog is so strong that you can't have a bad second half and be higher than like 7, because those other 6 albums are pretty consistently fantastic. So yeah, number 7, Da Capo. Number 6 is Real to Real, their 7th and kind of officially last album before all that other, the Arthur Lee in Love, and then those later sort of releases of unreleased stuff. Just a really great, tight, funky, well-written, really no bad songs, pop, funk, 70s album. Time is Like a River is a really upbeat, forceful drums, kind of poppy, kind of soft, but still like a grab you by the lapels and shake you type opener. Really nice vibe. Stop the Music almost has this sort of Righteous Brothers meets Ray Charles ballady energy, and just a fantastic vocal performance by Lee. Who Are You? One of the highlights of the album. Really funky groove. I don't know if that's like a clavinet that's being played, but you get some funky keyboard sounds at some point. Really kind of loose and jammy, but they're not jamming. They're just playing loose like in jammy like they are. Good old-fashioned Dream, upbeat pop energy, Which is Which. We got some horns dropping in. We got horns on a number of the songs on here. Oh, good old-fashioned Dream has some fantastic horn energy. Which is Which. That's an acoustic kind of quirky song, but then the one that's after that with a little energy, we got more horns. This is almost like an upbeat pop 60s anthem type thing with a little energy. We got the power. We can do it, people. A lot of Lee's vocals are earlier in his career were a lot darker, and it seems like he's coming out of the 60s into the 70s with maybe a little more hope, in him. Singing Cowboy, some great slide guitar, really upbeat. This is a remaking of a track from an album that I haven't discussed about yet, For Sales. I think this one is a shorter version. It's more tightly reined in. That one that was released earlier is kind of looser, a little jammier at the end. Be Thankful for What You Got. Nice, awesome percussion opening. Then we drop into this really awesome bass groove, and we got almost like this 70s soft funk, just awesome vibe. I mean, Be Thankful What You Got. Another one of the best songs on here. You Said You Would. More great slide. It's got that I told you once and I told you twice. That's not the song, but The Last Time has almost like the melody of this. It kind of reminds me of the Stones' Last Time. What else we got? Busted Feet, nice heavy chugging groove. And then we close out with Everybody's Gotta Live. Breezy, kind of dark, kind of ballady, some choral singing going on. Yeah, there's just not a bad song on here. And it's just 3 pretty great songs. Who Are You? Be Thankful. You Said You Would. No, Be Thankful. Be Thankful is just fantastic. Be Thankful is like a top 10 song. But yeah, really good. Yeah, Real to Real. They're last. My number 6. Yeah. Number 5 is their 5th. Out Here, released in 1969, the end of 69. It is a double album, and so it might be a little indulgent at times. Maybe probably could have been edited down to like an album that jumps from 5 to 2, possibly, because there is some fantastic stuff on here. But it has that double album indulgent charm, which I think double albums, when they're as eccentric as something like Exile, it's the indulgence that makes them work. And I think there's some indulgence on here that clearly makes it work. Some sort of like sillier type poppier folk songs that kind of pop up that like probably wouldn't pop up on a shorter album, but here you can get away with stuff like that. The opening, I'll Pray For You, starts off with some really good pop folk 60s stuff, but then goes into a kind of a nice jammy finish. You got Abalone, which is like a 2-minute sort of country folk rock song. You get the fantastic Signed DC, dramatic, great vocal performance. One of the lines is, my soul belongs to the dealer, or my soul belongs to my dealer. And it is just this like dark song from Lee with like music that always doesn't reflect the darkness of the lyrics, but the more you get to the lyrics, the more you can hear just the melancholy kind of seep through the music. Listen to My Song, which is almost yodeling acoustic folk type stuff. I'm Down, another just kind of mid-tempo Clapton-y rocker that's just fantastic. Really good guitar energy in this. And that's side A, closes out side A, kind of all over the map, but a couple really good songs. Side DC and I'm Down, fantastic. You get Stand Out, which is this nice stomping rocker. You get that kind of Hendrix talk singing thing he does, and there's some very Hendrix vibes in here. Discharge, which is like your silly, ridiculous, Broadway-esque type, really silly thing. Some dark lyrics. It's an anti-war song about how happy I am to be discharged, something about killing people and stuff. And then you get Doggone, which it's a 12-minute song that has a 98-minute drum solo, or at least that's what it feels like. It's got a drum solo. I don't need a drum solo. Like, right there. Reduce this song to the 3-minute song it is. Give me some other stuff. You might love your drummer, and yeah, we all need to give the drummer some, but I don't need a drum solo. And it's like 8 or 9 minutes long. It's long. Finally, at the end, you come back for like 30 seconds of the like revisiting the song, and it's just like, oh, yeah. That kind of hurts this album's ranking. You get I Still Wonder. Awesome. Weird. Guitar, folk, psych, just weirdness. Opens up side C. Love Is More Than Words. Another really, really fantastic song. after the drum solo track and side B being kind of a placeholder, side C is coming back strong. Great guitar, really long jam on Love Is More. That works. This is like 11.5-minute song, and this time there's actually a guitar jam. There's actually like some pretty good playing on this. Nice to be, nice, tight, jazzy pop. Like you get 3 fantastic songs in a row. Car Lights, we're back to like the back porch country shit. Run to the Top, nice psych pop. Organ work on there is pretty good. Some melody on that. We get Willow, awesome guitar intro on Willow. We get Instrumental, which is a nice squirmy little jam, an instrumental. You Are Something, more awesome. This one has like a ska-y flavor almost, or maybe like an early Police type to the rhythm. That's really good. And then we close out with Gather Around, which has a little bit of an Animals vibe. I hear a little bit of We Gotta Get Out of This Place in there. I think that's what it is. A little bit of that Eric Burden in there. But yeah, it doesn't all work. The country Baroque, the country Broadway whimsical stuff, while the lyrics might be good, the music is a little bit distracting, a little bit cheesy. We don't need a drum solo, but there is some absolutely fantastic stuff on here. And it's like a 70-minute, it's a 70-minute album. You pare this down to like 45, 50. Again, it's not going to make number 1, but it could threaten number 2. But for now, it's number 5, Out Here. Number 4 is their 6th false start. Came out in 1970. This is just a really fun, tight, consistent, a lot of good guitar grooves. Jimi Hendrix actually plays on the first track, The Everlasting First, which we literally just rush into the song in the middle of a jam. We're just like, oh, we're here. Something's already going on, but now we're going to join it. Awesome rock song that segues directly into Flying, which has this really nice pop 60s vibe. Yeah, the album is just 31 minutes, 32 minutes long. There's not much here, but it's all fantastic. Give Me a Little Break. This bass leads in, drops into this nice groove with some squiggly guitar. Really cool pop rock song, one of the highlights of the album. Stand Out. I think this is a live track, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's a completely live track. Kind of sounds like your typical Hendrix rocker. Keep on Shining has a country vibe, but not a cheesy country vibe. I think there's some pedal steel, some nice like rolling country piano in there. But it's got this upbeat kind of walking down the street, strolling energy that contrasts well with the way we just entered the jam on the first song. Anytime has this also kind of continues with the soft, breezy opener, but you drop into this really awesome, tight rock pop song, one of the highlights of the album. Slick Dick is kind of an upbeat, silly Who number. I think the first line starts off with Slick Dick, and then the music drops in. But there's some great guitar on here. It almost verges on being disco, and disco's not going to pop up for 4 or 5 years. Like there are some dance grooves in there. There's this part that almost has this "that's the way, straight up that's the way, I like it" groove. Like it is a fantastic song that is just like for 1970 kind of pops up out of nowhere. Love Is Coming. Exactly what you would expect from a title like that. Some nice hippie pop folk. Feel Daddy, Feel Good. Really cool opening riff. Drops into this great groove. Another one of the awesome highlights. Then we close out with Ride That Vibration, which has this refrain of keep on riding at the end that kind of slowly escalates into this really nice closing jam. Some nice harmonies, kind of playful with the rhythm, and kind of a little bit going on in a lot going on in like 3.5 minutes. But yeah, just a really, really solid 32 minutes of music that has some probably 4 absolute must-hear tracks. Yeah, some nice guitar playing. Hendrix is on it. Yeah, a strong album. Number 4, False Start. Number 3 is For Sale. Neither of those words spelled like you'd expect it, and an odd reference to the Beatles. After his first three albums, two and a half of which are perfect, he got rid of most of his band, Arthur Lee did. Came back with kind of a new band. I think he was the only one that was left. And this one has a lot more guitar energy than his first three. It's kind of jammy. Lyrics are still really kind of dark at times, but it's just another strong from start to finish album. That's just, yeah, just absolutely amazing. Opens up with a super powerful August, little maybe more of a progressive vibe, almost some proggy psych rock here. Kind of really going in a different direction than his previous album, which we've yet to talk about on here. Kind of a frantic, jammy vibe. Your Friend and Mine has a walking down the street type country song, kind of a Pink Floyd, the deeds of a man in his old age is a free four, kind of a free four vibe. What is that? The dreams of whatever that song is. I think it's free four. The dreams of a man is, but it has that kind of vibe. Also kind of Kingsian in its lyrics. I'm With You, some upbeat folk, Good Times, kind of this swinging, jazzy nightclub, snap your fingers type thing. Really nice guitar solo, nice swing jam at the end. And then we get the longer version of Singing Cowboy, which has some upbeat folky rock and more of a frantic guitar ending than the one we had talked about in the previous album. Dream, almost a piece of my heart vibe with the guitar, some really nice guitar playing, but it has that sort of like building up to a point and dropping us in kind of guitar intro of Piece of My Heart. Robert Montgomery, awesome guitar intro. This is a nice like storytelling feel about it. Really nice guitar throughout that almost feels like it's being purposefully held back and contained and restrained within the energy of the song. Nothing, some more great guitar playing, Talking in My Sleep. A little bit of a quirkier song, but it's still jammy, still very much 60s rock. More great guitar on here. Like the guitar player on this album, who is it? Jay Don Yellen is doing wonders for this material and is really bringing some nice energy throughout these songs. And then the last one, Always See Your Face, which is just, the lyrics are just heartbreaking, really sad, but the melodies are beautiful. It is a gorgeous song. It is absolutely just like, there's a lot of real rock and jammy intensity on this album that is good. And then this last song is just like, yeah, but then I'm just going to devastate you with some heartbreak and send you home with that. And Always See Your Face is just one of those perfect Arthur Lee songs. But yeah, number 3, For Sale, a fantastic, fantastic album. Number 2 is Love, the debut album, which came out in 1966. And this is just almost a perfect psych folk rock album. It sounds very much like 1966. Got a lot of Birdsian influence, I'd say, more than any other artist. But at the same time, there's like little bits and pieces that can remind you of like Jefferson Airplane or maybe a little Hendrix, maybe seeping in. There is a cover of Hey Joe on here. You got a Bob Dylan reference. I'm almost positive it's got to be a Dylan reference in the song. I think it's called Gazing, because they talk about the pits of Eden, which has to be a reference to Gates of Eden. So it's very much of its time and aware of its time, but it kills it. Opens up with a Burt Bacharach cover, My Little Red Book, which is just, I mean, Bacharach writes amazing melodies, and they've taken that and turned it into some like awesome 60s pop with like little tinge of psych energy that you know is going to be back. Can't Explain, very Birdsian. The vocal performances on this, Lee, is just, his performances are fantastic vocally, and mad props to Ken Forsey, the bass player. The bass, over and over and over again, is just coming up with some great ideas. A Message to Pretty, easily one of the highlights of their entire catalog. Third song of their career. Haunting, really nice sort of harmonica motif that gets repeated. Sad, it's a ballad, but it just feels, reminds me of like Antlers from like 2008, 2009, just these really just depressing songs that are somehow melancholically beautiful, and you're just drawn to them. But A Message to Pretty is just fantastic. And Falling is the third song. Like, they know its strength. Otherwise, this is a song you usually bury at the end of a side. Nah, man, they know it's got power. I Flash on You, kind of early Stones rock. We got some Stonesian energy in there. Softly to Me, some Jefferson Airplane type folky psych, some really nice kind of spirally jazzy guitar lines weaving through there. No Matter What You Do, more of an early Stones vibe, especially in Lee's vocals, kind of have a younger Jagger sound to them. But he then takes this song and like goes next level with his vocal performance. Like, Lee is just absolutely fantastic. We get Emotions, which is an instrumental, kind of a Western-esque guitar type thing. That's pretty interesting. Very moody type little piece. I'll Be Following kicks off the second side midway through the CD. Another fantastic highlight of the album. Some really great lyrics about drug culture. It seems very much about the LA scene drug culture of the time. It's this kind of rocky stomper folk rocky vibe that's really catchy, and some dark great lyrics. Gazing, folk song with the Pits of Eden in it. The sort of upbeat Frantic Hey Joe cover. Sign DC, which he would do on a later album. The other one with My Soul Belongs to My Dealer. Just this really dark, depressing song. Some really dark lyrics, but just great song. And then Colored Balls Falling, kind of psych folk rock. Mushroom Clouds, ballad folk. It's what you expect from this era. You know, the apocalypse is looming over everybody's heads. And then we close out with Ann Moore, which is some really nice Birdsian folk rock on it. Yeah, it's a fantastic debut. There are some classic tracks on here. None of it is bad. Lee is just, there's something about him, man. There's some charisma to his performance. His vocals are all over the place, and he is just bringing it over and over on so many songs on here. That's my number 2, their debut. Now on to number 1. And my number 1, my favorite Love album, is Forever Changes. This is their third, came out in 1967, released in November, recorded during the Summer of Love. And there is a passage in Hunter S. Thompson's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas that Terry Gilliam wisely pretty much used the entire thing, in which Raoul Duke is in the hotel in Vegas, and he's looking out, he's messed up. Dr. Gonzo has gone crazy behind him, or might have left town at this point. And Hunter S. Thompson is writing about how if it's like 1971, the Vietnam War is raging, the dream is over. How if you look west with a certain kind of eyes, you can see the point where that wave of like hope and like there's going to be a difference, and we can do something, and we can stop the war. Where that wave peaked and then began to roll back into the utter despair and hopelessness that he felt the early 70s was. This is that album. Only it's being recorded during the Summer of Love. And Lee is looking to the future and being like, nah, man, this ain't going to last. Racial tension is not going anywhere. War is not going anywhere. Drug use, it's not going to end up good. Like, this is a man who sees the future, and he's not going to go easy on you. His lyrics are pretty poetic. They're not Bob Dylan, either surrealistic or harsh reality. They're kind of somewhere where, like, you know what truths he's speaking, but there's still sort of this lyrical, poetic energy about them. And this album is just, the lyrics are just really amazing for their time, knowing what would happen over the course of the next 5 years with the escalation in Vietnam and Cambodia and the riots in the States and everything that was going on in the United States. But it also reminds me of, like, musically, like production-wise, like the commitment he had to this album. Like Gene Clark's, is it For No One? I always forget the name of that album. It's got like No Other, Gene Clark's No Other, which was just kind of indulgent. Why do we need 18 backup singers and strings and all this stuff on every song? But the result is just this quiet masterpiece that the first time you listen to it, you're like, that's pretty good. The second time, you're like, oh yeah, that's really good. Third time, you're like, oh my God, that's really good. And then you're just like, wow, that's might be one of the best albums ever made. More people need to know about it. And that's what this one is. Alone Again or the opening track is like, starts off with this really sort of classic psych folk groove, kind of dark, but it feels familiar. And then in the middle, we go into this crazy mariachi break. Yeah, just out of nowhere. Let's get this awesome little mariachi trumpet coming in. Contrast pretty extreme with the other stuff. It's a trumpet. Yeah, what did I say? Did I say trumpet? I don't think I said trumpet. The trumpet coming in kind of clashes with the rest of the song, but it kind of just makes it work a little better, that clash. I don't know, especially considering when it was recorded and the time. There's something weird about it. A house is not a motel. More dark lyrics, more dark imagery. There is this repressed explosiveness throughout the entire track where you feel like it wants to, like, I don't know, violently rebel against the world, but it just keeps it all in. Just classic 60s folk, but so much going on, like right below the surface. And More Again, we're like maybe getting a little more optimistic, even like maybe got a Joan Baez vibe here. The Daily Planet, sort of about the eternal recurrence of daily life and how dull and monotonous that is. And yet the music is kind of bright and poppy. Kind of reminds me of the Kinks. You know, you're like, man, this is a good hook. And then you listen to the lyrics, you're like, oh, did that guy just, where did he, what is his oven? What? You know, it just gets, it just gets sad. Some nice harmonies that kind of give me a Beatles vibe. Old Man is your typical song about an old man, but again, it kind of sounds whimsical at times, but for the most part, it's some serious psych pop, and the lyrics are kind of depressing. Red Telephone, fantastic. Really dark lyrics. Everybody dies, and I think he's up on a hotel room or on a mountaintop or maybe in the Hollywood Hills watching everybody die. It's got a really nice sort of gentle, hypnotic, acoustic vibe about it, but it's just talking about the ills and woes of society and how things are probably just going to crumble apart at some time. But I'm going to make you feel gentle and good while I'm singing about it, because that's what I'm doing. Maybe the People would be the Times, or Between Clark and Hilldale. Fantastic title. Another highlight of the album. Definitely more of an urgent acoustic push to this one. You got some folky rock horns that come in at some point. Just about social anxieties and things like that, and just kind of making your way through the day and interacting with people. But it's also just got a really intense vibe about it. Live and Let Live, kind of some Kinkesian pop that has a bright energy, but it's got some deep lyrics. And then we get a nice sort of jammy ending in this one. I think it's the longest song of this album, second longest song at like 5.5 minutes. The Good Humor Man, He Sees Everything Like This. Another great title. Very MGMT. This sounds like one of those songs MGMT would have taken inspiration for, particularly on their first two albums. Kind of a weird, very short ending at one point, but pretty good. Bummer in the Summer. Awesome, upbeat 60s kind of folky, rocky vibe. Some really kind of reminds me of Plastic Fantastic Lover by Jefferson Airplane. Has that kind of bouncy, melodic, the vocals and stuff like that. And then You Set the Scene, some upbeat folk pop to close out the album. It's 42 minutes of like perfect 60s psych pop music. If you are a fan of psych pop, psychedelia, folk rock, folk pop, any of that stuff, great lyrics, you have not heard this, you need to change that, like right now. Go listen to that album. Listen to it more than once, because there's some subtle Baroque pop that you really doesn't start to seep in. It's one of those that every time you listen to it, it's like when you eat peppers. Every last one just makes it a little bit hotter in your mouth. And this is just a fantastic, fantastic album. And that is what they look like right there in typewritten form. I would argue that all of them are worth checking out, but the top four are almost all without flaws. 5 has that drum solo, reel to reel, hit and misses, but it's pretty strong. To Capo, the jam on side B, no. But all of them, even 5-string Serenade, the one from like more recently from this millennium, a couple years, about 5 years, 6 years before he died. they all have moments that are worth hearing. Arthur Lee was special. Great lyrics, great voice, great performances, great energy. In a way, he kind of sounded like so many other bands that it's almost like, because I don't think he fully committed to like what maybe the Byrds were doing or the Who were doing or Jefferson Airplane, he maybe got lost in the mix, or I don't know why. Maybe there's just not enough pop hits on these, but it's fantastic music, especially if you're fans of like psych folk 60s stuff. It's must hear in that case. But yeah, that's what I got. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, and comment. Let me know if you know this band, if you check out this band, your thoughts on this band, what I messed up about this band. You guys know how comments work. That's all I got. Thanks, peace, and talk to you later.